Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Smooth Operators Guide by Live Dogs. Today, we have Adam Robinson, whose achievements are mere routine for any entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. He is the CEO of Retention.com and RB2B. Welcome, Adam, to a new episode of Smooth Operators Guide by Live Dogs. So, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hey man, thank you so much for having me on. I don't have that much more to say other than, yes, I am the CEO of Retention.com and RB2B. I'm happy to be here, and I can't wait to dive in.
Awesome. Great, Adam. So, you have a very interesting, origin to your journey, right? Like, you started your journey at Lehman Brothers and then Barclays before you moved into tech and marketing sectors. What motivated this career shift? Like coming from finance, and what are the learnings?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I
Right.
just, I graduated college in 2003. I'm probably older than most people listening to this. Um, at that time, in the late 90s, before that 2000 crash, a lot of people were going into startups. But I still don't know that it was quite like now, where like a 21-year-old, like a lot of 21-year-olds could go raise money to do stuff. That wasn't really the dynamic back then. I mean, you heard the stories of Zuckerberg and like whatever quitting, but like
Right.
it wasn't the norm. So, if you were an ambitious person and you did well at school, working at like a top tier investment bank was like a very common thing to do, just because you made a lot of money and it opened a lot of doors in the future. So that was what that career was all about. I happened to fall into this credit default swap trading department within Lehman Brothers, which, if you're an old dog, that's kind of what nuked the financial system
Yeah.
in 2008. And Lehman Brothers defaulted. But like the job that I happened to have, it, it was amazing. Through the whole thing, everybody doing what I did made tons of money. So like that happened, and then strangely it was kind of like over after that. So but I had made a life-changing amount of money for someone in their 20s,
Right.
enough to where I could just stop doing what was then, after all that stuff, a much less exciting job, and kind of blindly pursue, without even knowing what it meant, being a tech entrepreneur. And it was like horrible. I didn't pay myself for 5 years. Like it consume. I think startups, especially for first-time founders, they will consume all of the cash around until that cash is gone, and then either the startup dies or the entrepreneur is forced to make it cash flow positive somehow. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. Like I had this pile of cash, and then I set out to be an internet entrepreneur, and then somehow I got one working, um, years later. It was terrible though. I mean, it's really hard to like completely change. There's almost nothing similar between trading credit default swaps and building early stage software.
Right.
It's none of the same skills. So
Interesting. But I mean, when I see retention.com, we're big fans of retention.com over here as well. So, like, you kind of managed to scale it to like $22 million in ARR in just like 4 years. And with,
that's my second
no,
startup. That's my second startup, by the way. I didn't do that the first time around.
right.
Hardly anybody's first business really
Yeah.
succeeds in that way, right? So like my first business, I got to 3 million ARR and it got stuck. It was stuck for 4 years. Then in trying to grow that business, that's how retention.com was born. It started as a feature in the first business, and then people loved the feature and hated the rest of the product. So we spun
Wow.
the feature out, sold the other product, and then it was 22 million ARR in 4 years. And then it's happening again, by the way. Like our B2B is kind of an extension of what retention.com was. It's just, instead of selling to e-commerce stores, we're selling to B2B companies. And it seems to be exponentially more powerful than even retention.com was, just looking at the first 17 weeks or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two we sell retention.com and everybody's focused on our B2B, just like the last time. So yeah, I just want, anytime I feel like someone's giving me a little too much credit for how well retention.com did. I want to make sure to like spell out that like I didn't start that company until 2019, and like I left finance in 2012. So I had 7 years of entrepreneurial experience before launching
Right.
that. you know. And then this one, which is crushing it, RB2B, like I'm 10 years into this. Like, this is my third startup. Like I just am very good at, basically, I think what it is like by the way, like we tried to create another product last year that didn't work. So it's not like you're immune to stuff not working, but I think you get much better at identifying what could be quality opportunities and then assessing whether it's worthwhile to continue pursuing it based on the signal you're getting back. And then once you decide it's pursuing, I think you can get really good at speeding things up and like doing that with very little resources, at least in my case, because I don't use investor capital. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, you did not at all. I mean, that's totally. Yeah, of course. Like assessing the right feedback is what experience taught you, and that's like I think that's kind of true for everyone. Overnight success is more than, if not equal to, 10 years, and so like I just want to know, like this year, like you've been a serial entrepreneur for the last like 10 years, maybe more than 10 years. So what
Mhm.
are some of the key or like super standout learnings that you would like to share that today's entrepreneurs need to like really watch out for? Because today the economy is kind of like taking this turn towards like being cash flow positive at all costs. You cannot just go out there and raise venture capital, and you have done it without a venture capital. Though you took your own time, I'm sure you did something right.
Yeah. So I love bootstrapping. And I think that even though like the problem with startups is like everything is working against you in the beginning, literally everything. Like if you know, but by the way, like there was a time when, I had saved some money, but like I was like zero revenue, zero subscribers, zero anything for, from 2012 when I wanted to start doing this in 2014 when we launched our product, and everything was really hard. Uh, so, and everything will be hard until you basically get to like 10 million ARR. But I think it's a worthy pursuit to try to bootstrap to get there, because I think once you do get there, the world's at your fingertips. You can do whatever you want. You can hire a CEO if you want. You can sell your business for $50 million that day if you want. You can keep bootstrapping and in 2 years pay yourself $5 million a year. It's like you can do whatever you want if you can get that far bootstrapping. But like the system is set up to not allow you to do that. In the early stage, it feels almost like you're desperate and like almost destitute, right? Like you have no resources or whatever. And then if you get traction and break out and get to 5 million ARR, then VC show up and they tell you, if you sign this piece of paper, you're worth $50 million or something. And you're not worth $50 million, right?
Yeah.
You're but that really plays a trick on your head because of um, the state that you were in 6 months before that. So anyway, back to your question. What I think that like in the beginning, if I just reflect on the mistakes that I made, it was spending money on things like 2 steps ahead instead of 1 step ahead. And I'll give you a couple examples. Like
Yeah.
I got an office for our first startup. That was so stupid, right? But it's like validating for your ego. So you want to do it. You like want your name on the wall or whatever, right? Like it's just the biggest waste of money possible, especially these days, right? Uh, I I don't know that I would do this today, even if I were starting, but like I bought a phone system. It's like for what? like Vonage, like I bought like a VO. I'm like, well, we need phones, right? Like, of course we need phones. We're a business, you know? I read some books on like content marketing or something. I bought these 2 expensive cameras. Like, you know what I mean? I just like started spending money so like, you know, I always say like, if you are starting a startup, regardless of how you do it, I mean, I hope you bootstrap, but like however you do it, at some point, it is going to take longer than you think, period. And to get to product market fit, it will take if you're if you're sitting there asking me for advice, it's going to take you longer than you think. That's my point, right? So cash will get incredibly tight at some point. So if you can just keep that in mind, right, it will help immeasurably. And then the other thing is just like, I think people get ahead of themselves in the, if you want to call it like growth hacking process, um, until here's my view of the world. And I think you have to have incredibly high standards if you want to be a bootstrapper, but I think people should have high standards and be bootstrappers, because if you can crack the product market fit thing, your whole life is a dream. If you cannot, your whole life is going to be a grind. Period. Full stop. So I believe that with word of mouth, with incredibly strong word of mouth, you can do anything and it will work, because the world is just set up to speed word of mouth up. If you don't have strong word of mouth, almost nothing you do will work. So where do you get word of mouth from? It's from providing a very high, from providing a great product to a very tight niche of people, right? Who like it so much that they talk about it. That is so it's like, the key is in the beginning to do things that do not scale, do things incredibly manually, and just be talking to as many people. Your job is to talk to people and get them to tell you what sucks about your product, and then prioritize what you can change, and slowly, and just be like, dude, what would it, figure out if you took it away from them, would they be pissed off or not, right? Like, how do you get this tight group of people so excited about what you're doing that they're actually telling each other about it? That's the game. And then once
Right.
there are signs that that is happening, then you focus on the growth hacking stuff, right? Like, um, but like, just because you got a VA sitting around doesn't mean that she should be like trying to put you on, product hunt or whatever, whatever the growth hack du jour is, right? Like the only solution longer term is a great product, and your life's going to be miserable without it. So you might as well just focus on only that. But it's really hard to understand that idea your first time, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, because everything else looks like shiny and attractive. You just want to be out there. You want to be number one on Product Hunt. You want to be having a PR. You want to be
Totally.
featured on Forbes and TechCrunch. Yeah,
Yeah, but like all of that is sort of quick hit that like doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that product market fit is literally the only thing that matters. Like, it's the only thing that's gonna get you where you want to go. It's and it's really hard to get there, and it's really hard to stay disciplined and not spend money. The idea would be spend as little money as humanly. The one piece of advice really is like, spend as little money as humanly possible. Literally eat ramen noodles, whatever, until you have this product market fit, and then grow capital efficient until 10 million, and then decide what you want to do. At 10 million, if you want to go raise $100 million and go take over the world, do it. But like, the discipline that you'll get growing a SaaS to 10 million with no capital, being super highly efficient, is the lessons that will come for that will serve you forever. I think in business and in life, by the way, like, you just learn how to get so much out of the resources that you have. It's just a great way to live, you know?
right. Like you just become a better human.
I mean, I think so. I think investor capital makes you waste money,
Of course.
like, um, yeah, and it gets you focused on the wrong thing. So,
Yeah, I can't agree more on that. So, cool. I mean, so now, like, I just want to talk a little bit about, like, even like your products that you're building right now, right? Like retention.com and RB2B. So, like, what are your thoughts? What are your future? Like, I mean, what do you think is the future? You mentioned that RB2B, like, kind of spun off as a feature inside retention.com. And where do you see that going? And what are some of the North Star metrics or like key channels that you're focusing on? Like a little more technical details if you can.
yeah. So, just to clarify that, this is kind of a nitpicky detail, but it kind of is important to the story. So,
Right.
retention.com started as a feature in my email marketing app, Robly.
Got it.
So, our B2B didn't start as a feature of retention.com because it's two totally different buyers, and the B2B buyer can't actually even use retention.com because it's like set up for e-commerce stores. But the core identity resolution technology is the same. It's just sort of, instead of bringing it to a deliverable email address, it brings it to a LinkedIn URL and a business email, right? So it's different tech stack, different buyer, completely different go to market. So you know, the motions of the two companies are like very different, right? Like the retention.com, there's basically a very small total addressable market we can go after. It's like, a couple thousand stores that we can make successful with this technology.
Right.
And that makes a lot of the digital channels very difficult. Like we're really good at doing owned events and doing activations around trade shows. And it's super expensive, it's super complicated, but we have an incredible team that can do that. And basically nothing else works. So like that's totally opposite from this RB2B go to market motion, which is me doing founder brand stuff and Santosh as well. But, my whole life is LinkedIn and doing guest slots on podcasts, basically. And just telling my story, which is our story, because in many ways, it's kind of like there's a big shift. I mean, I perceive a big shift happening in what has been viewed over the last 10 years as how you sell technology. Uh, Everything that was working for people 5 years ago is just much harder, and it's going to get even harder in the future. So it's like, what's the alternative? And I think I can credibly say that what I'm doing, while it may be difficult to achieve, it's definitely a viable alternative that will work indefinitely in the future. Creating outstanding organic social content that resonates with your target audience and drives awareness, and then creating signal that you then follow up with people on, rather than just cold outbound. Like, you know, nobody has argued that isn't a path forward. The only argument is like, well, what specific sort of like business situations does that apply to? Right? Like, of course it applies to mine because I'm a SaaS guy and I'm selling to SaaS guys, and they're on LinkedIn, and like I'm on LinkedIn, and like I'm reporting
Right.
my journey, so it's meaningful to them. So like, but what if I was selling to elementary school teachers? This wouldn't be working for me in the same way, right? I know that,
Yeah.
but like I do think there are ways to harness. So like my thesis one is that organic social media and the ability to create it is one of the most leveling forces that there has ever been in history, right? Because like if Procter and Gamble can't create a good organic post, but like Joe Schmo in his basement can, TikTok will reward Joe Schmo in his basement, right? Like that's great. That wasn't like that before. It was like the amount of followers you had determined distribution. But now it's how good your organic social content is. So even if it's not you kind of like doing what I'm doing to this audience, there are ways to harness organic social content. And my favorite example is one of our customers at retention.com, Ryan Bebenzian. He's got a showerhead company called Jolie. They got, with 3 employees, 50 million run rate in 18 months. How? They got 30,000 pieces of UGC created for them last year. How they do that? They fucking cold called every single small TikTok influencer and asked them if they wanted a shower head, sent it to them and said, if you like it, post about it. Like they sent out like 50,000 shower heads, right? So it's not like it cost them nothing, but like what they got back from it was this incredible exponentiality, because you know how TikTok is, like 1 out of every 100 posts, 15 million people see it, right? So yeah, that is what I think. It's like it's this it's like I tried to build RB2B to be this like future proof go to market motion, and in my opinion, it's like you know how are people going to buy software in the future? I think they may still do what they were doing, the phones and the demos and the whatever, but like what's definitely going to happen is like influencer led freemium, point solution, fast go to market, like this, kind of self-serve, like that trend is getting sort of more and more or whatever. So anyway, it's totally different than the other business, which I just wanted to emphasize, first.
Right.
So I'm in both camps right now.
Wow. Yeah, I can totally see like self-serve becoming like the go-to motion in a lot of even traditional bigger companies, right? So HubSpot added a self-serve. I mean, earlier you had to get on a phone and then like check with a demo, and then you can use HubSpot. But right now you can sign up and take it for a spin, and then pricing model, and then go ahead. And yeah, I want to dive a little bit more about your founder-led growth, because founder-led growth is here to stay for sure, right? And we can see that happening like almost in every corner of social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter,
Yeah.
whatever, right? And I totally can't agree more on the fact that whatever is your target audience, there should be some level of medium where you can be like known for, or like you can have some level of social capital, which will really enable you to sell better and also get this tight feedback loop with your target audience. And so my question here is that like, how do you constantly produce consistent quality content? Because I'm asking this for a actual use case, because we took your LinkedIn profile as an example and as an inspiration so many times internally, and we'll be like, how is he doing this? Like, how is
Yeah.
this even possible? And you grew like pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot happened. Um, so how I grew is different than a different question than how I do it, right? So like, let me just say, as of right now, I consider myself almost a full-time content creator. Like I'm entering a world, and I haven't fully made the jump yet, where like my
Right.
Mondays will be internal meetings related to retention.com and RB2B, and the entire rest of the week will be guest slots on podcasts, creating information assets, doing live shows. I think we're even going to like try to integrate like a, one to many coaching for startups into like a premium RB2B package. So this, I saw your eyes light up, right? Like, like that to me is like the future. It's like, you know, I think we understand some things about go to market that would help everyone. And our product is very good and it's hot, but like the information, community, and coaching around that go to market, if we can sort of figure out how to do it in a one to many way, is so much more valuable than the software. you know, and like bundling
100%.
the both of
Yeah.
them is like bundling both of them is like a really interesting thing. Russell Brunson did it with ClickFunnels. Uh, I'm going to try to do something like that with this, but that's not how it was, let's say 3 months ago. So the core team 3 months ago, the core team in like January 1 of this year, right, was this guy, Alec Paul, who's my consultant. And he's super expensive, but he's amazing. He doesn't write for you. He's like a creative director. So he's managing the calendar. I do a 1 hour idea generation session with him every week, sort of like what's working, what's not, why did something pop, why didn't it? Like we have 3 audiences we're trying to, hit. It's like founders, salespeople, then like marketers. So who haven't we hit in a while? Do we need to do another ABM post? Do we need to like do another predictable revenue is dead post? Or it's just, work in public's the easiest thing now because like I'm launching this other business again. So there's like so much interesting shit to talk about. So he will like manage the calendar, talk about like the general strategic direction with me. He does the editing or like whatever. So until, as of January 1, I'm like creating 3 posts per week, and I just like sit down and write them, and it takes maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours.
So
Um,
you do like all three at like one stretch? Take them
that's
one
how
to
I
one.
try to do it. I try to chunk it,
Right.
but like
Okay.
before now, I was also trying to do another job, which is like a job that would be more like what a CEO of would do, right? Like in
Right.
January, I was still very much the CEO of retention.com, which has 55 employees. that's a really different job than being a content creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Right.
still had this other full-time job that basically involved being on Zoom calls all day, both internally and externally, trying to figure out what was up. And then as we were building and launching RB2B, I was also on a ton of external calls related to discovery and like actually figuring out what the product and go-to-market motion should be. Now that's pretty dialed. And I just believe that what I alluded to earlier, sort of like figuring out how to expand what I call the edutainment part of this business and then
Right.
bundle uh, kind of knowledge and access into the software is like something I'm really intrigued by. So, I wanted to, I consider myself almost a full-time content creator now. I didn't in January, and the growth came during that last period, right? And by the way, the reason the growth happened is like, uh, you have to be in advertising and social media or whatever. It's like you're not going to break through unless you're different. And how do you be different on social media? It's really like you're willing to say things people are not willing to say. And then you come from like people value your perspective and your experience. The combination of those two things are deadly, right? And if you're just committed, right? I was throwing darts with my eyes closed for a year without really getting a bunch of traction. And it bothered me because I did not know why I was writing the words that I was writing. I was guessing. I was seeking what might work. Then 12 months in, boom, it clicked. I had a massive post. I wrote 3 more. I was like, you know what? If these 3 hit, I know what a great LinkedIn post is. If they don't, I'm still lost. Bam, bam, bam. 2 million impressions in 3 posts. Off to the races. I doubled my followers from 20,000 to 40,000 in 1 week after it took a year to get to 20,000. And it
Wow.
just clicked. And like now I know the reason that I'm writing every word that I'm writing. Does that make sense? Like I know why I post what I post. So like everyone can get there, but like you won't get there in the beginning. And the key is to just start because it's not about in the beginning. And this is so hard to embrace. In the beginning, it's not about getting engagement, getting business, getting demos, getting whatever. It's literally about just finding your voice. Because once you find your voice and you get content market fit, it opens the door for this magic inbound machine, right? Until you have that, you can do what the Jolie guys do if you're really good and try to harness organic social media that way, or like the Clay guys, right? The Clay guys have amassed this community of Clay creators, right? They've harnessed UGC in their favor, and it's not the founders doing it. It's
So yeah,
a whole universe
even
of other people.
Notion, Clay,
Notion
all
as
these
well.
guys.
Notion as
Yeah.
well. But that's actually, I think, more difficult, and your product has to be more dialed than just doing the founder thing. So it's like a small amount of effort over a long period of time that compounds, and then you will wake up someday and you will have this ability. That's how you have to look at it, I think. And if you don't start, you're never going to have it. And then I'm afraid that someday it's going to be the only way. Like will most companies be influencer led?
Right.
Probably. I think B2B is like way behind, but like in D2C, it's really easy to grow a company that way, right? Like, and if you look at what's happening in RB2B, it's like the only reason it's happening is because like I built this personal brand of dragging Santosh along, and like it's just the awareness is insane that we are getting for this product, right? And the product's great, and both of them work off of each other, but we would not be growing like we were growing if I did not have this LinkedIn situation that was like creating all this awareness, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think the entire job description of a CEO is kind of changing over time, right? Like right now, you need to be a
Man.
lot more.
I mean, you're talking to a guy who just said he's a full-time content creator, yet is the CEO of 2 startups. Like, I couldn't agree with that statement more. The thing that I love about it is I think that if you like, I'm in a chat with 150 SaaS CEOs above 20 million ARR. If you were like, who here thinks they'll be a full-time content creator in the next 5 years? You would get one yes, me. Right? Like people are so far from thinking that that's what a CEO should do. And they don't
I
And by
Yeah.
the way, like not all CEOs should do it, but like there's many CEOs who are in the position I am, they're like selling to who they are
Yeah.
and who their prospects live on a platform, right? If that is the case and you're not doing what I'm doing, you are leaving the largest opportunity for cheap awareness on the table that has ever existed and will ever exist. And it's only going to get harder. So like today's, now's the time. But yeah, people move slow. You think uh, there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to do it. There's a lot of reasons why people don't want to be transparent. Like it's just there's a lot. I think there's like a moat around what I'm doing to some extent, and that
Right.
moat is people's habits and beliefs about about this, right? So
100%. Like, I mean, general consensus is that, like, including myself, I would believe something from your post than a post from a brand or RB2B in general. Like, if I see a post from a brand, like from a company page, I'm going to be like, oh, this is written by someone to convert me, like to
yeah,
like to make me click and sign up for their product. But if it's going to be like from an individual, then about your story, about your success, about your whatever, like build in public, I'm going to be like, okay, cool, wow, this resonates with me. You know what, like I want to
totally.
read this.
It's a whole different type of power,
Yeah.
and the nature of the way LinkedIn content works, it's just this amazing relationship that gets formed over time. Like the fact that people
Right.
read these like in-depth, super heavy, deep thought leadership posts over and over and over again. Like I just believe in the reason I do video. It's like I believe that and like I know this because I'll go to an event and people will walk up to me and they won't even say their name, like it's because they feel like we're friends. And like that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with my content. I'm trying to bring people along on my journey and make them feel like they are my friend and we're just like talking, right? Like I had a great day and I'm just like sharing with you everything I'm going through. And the person who's listening, they're doing something similar, right? So like it's just it's an amazing I mean, I'm still in a honeymoon phase with it. Like it's all very new to me. Like my first post was September of 2022 and it really just started working in September of last year, but like I am dumbfounded by the power if you can get to this place where I am, right? And even before it's like super powerful to like, for other reasons, right? Like it's
Right.
helps with any, recruiting. Someone's going to go to your LinkedIn page and like look at what you've written. Like regardless of whether it's driving tons of business to you or not, if you post content regularly on LinkedIn, it will do automated trust building for you in other cohorts in other segments of your business, right? Like partnerships, investors, like recruits, like whatever. All these things are super important, and
Right.
having your thoughts, kind of like a stream of your thoughts coming out and beliefs, like it will allow people to pre-sell themselves on you, you know, in your company. That's my belief.
Got it. Yeah. 100%. So I want to go a little more in, like, I mean, you kind of got an exit with Rob Lee, right? It's an email marketing platform, and it was not just an easy exit. You got an 8-figure exit. Like, so, if you may share, like, what are some of the significant challenges? Because a lot of us like want either an exit or want to go IPO or like some kind of soft landing, but then that's not usually the case. Most of the startups kind of like don't go through that. But
Yeah.
if you want to share some learnings, what were the difficulties, learnings? Like, what was it like to even to sell a startup to someone?
So like, so first of all, I think uh, if I were a first time entrepreneur, and I actually wrote a post about this like maybe last week, my first one, I would shoot for an unambitious outcome because I think that if your goal is like 3 or 4 million ARR, then you can run your company in like a more, a less dangerous way and like, You can
Right.
create, you could do what I did. You could like create this cash flow vehicle, which like is kind of funding new experiments, and you just like try to improve. And it's like, whoa, like, well, this is actually its own product. And then you get rid of one and you start the next one, like whatever. So, uh, we, I think we were lucky to be able to sell that business for what we did, just because of, like we actually sold to one of our customers. They were interested in, and it was like a hot time for acquisitions. I think we got rid of it in like 2021 or something. Um, so this company was trying to do, they're private equity. They're trying to do like a roll up or whatever. And, it was great. I have a couple co-founders. It wasn't like I got all that money. We used a broker, so like they got a commission. But still, it was definitely like, uh, to have that, it's a cushion, right? Like it's like, I know my life will not end if all goes to hell, because of that. And you know who's the like a whatever $10 or $20 million exit's great, right? And if you're kind of shooting for that, like there's a lot of buyers of those companies. There are, you can bootstrap to that type of an exit, um, and it's, especially if it's your first time around, it's like totally a life-changing amount of money to like be able to bank millions of dollars and then, you know, kind of do it again or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a worthy pursuit, and it's not something that many people talk about. Like it seems to be much more exciting for people to, raise at 80 million than sell for 20, right? But like selling for 20 is actually a way better outcome for almost
Of course, it's
everybody,
like
you
it's
know?
like real cash. It's not like on the books, or like it's not a perceived valuation.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, I mean, it's like, it's just amazing that the perceived valuation has so much of a psychological effect on people, but it just does. It's like the biggest weapon of institutional capital, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And yeah, so I have a kind of like a little more niche down, more targeted question,
Hmm.
but I don't know. So let me just read it out anyways. So thing is, customer success as a function is kind of like very undervalued in B2B SaaS, or even like SaaS, from whatever I know, right? Like it's very hard to reach the customer support executive or be good at it and stuff like that. While acquisition and retention is like measured constantly. So I want to know, like, because obviously you've seen great success with probably you're seeing great success with retention.com. Like, what is your thoughts on customer success, and how do you guys tackle this problem? What is the things? What are the metrics that you track? What are the tools that you use? What is it like?
It, man, that's such a complex question. So
Sorry about that.
yeah, like with, so I'll just talk about all three of the businesses that I've run. Like, with Robley, the motion that we had is we were switching people over from this company called Constant Contact, and basically we needed to like get them to set up their email template in our system and then send one email out, and that's when it stopped. And then it like went to, if they had problems, it was customer support after that, right? Like, and we started one-to-one with for that onboarding process, and then we actually had as much success doing one-to-many as one-to-one, which was amazing. Maybe even more success, strangely, because yeah. So our B2B, there's, it's self-serve. There's no customer success. Retention.com, there was no customer success until we created this, a second product, which was much more complex to onboard than the first product. And, uh, you know, uh, it's, it's just a challenging department. It's like we try to like, give the sort of best experience we can. There's just a lot of variables. There's a lot of confusion around what's customer success and what's customer support. Um, the it, it, it what measures success of that department? Part of it is like anecdotal, like are people bitching about like not getting good success or good customer success or not? Like if so, then they're not doing a good job. Or like, are they saying like, I'm trying to speak with somebody and like I can't get a call for 2 weeks? Like that's not
Right.
good, right? And then they measure frequency of because whatever, it's like frequency of outreach is like, have we talked, have we gone to them with something this month, right? Or for example, um things like uh, you know a problem needs to be fully solved, right? Like there's not, they can't come in with something and then it's like still unresolved, like whatever, a week later. um and yeah, look, for many for many software companies, it's like that's like a critically important function, but
Right.
for attention.com, it's like a lot of the traditional customer success things don't really exist. There's not really an upsell, there's not really a cross sell, right? Like the you know the traditional customer success role, it's our business is like kind of high touch customer support, so I don't know. And then my other two didn't really have it ish, so like I may not be the best guy to that.
Got it.
I'm always like, you know if I can figure out a way to get the product to do it without a human, I'm gonna try. Some products aren't like that though, so
Yeah, 100%. That's a dream. But got it. I have a more easy version of the same question now. So,
yeah.
talking about acquisition and activation, right? Like, so when do you think, like, I know that your most, if I'm not wrong, the working channel for acquisition is probably organic socials, right? Your social brand or even the company social brand and stuff like that. Now, what is it, since you're already building RB2B, which is prospecting your website visitors? um, how do you activate them? What is your activation point like? What is that? Is there a metric? Is there a North Star? Is there some kind of KPI? How do you guys
Yeah,
track
so
that?
like we the one thing we track, which isn't a perfect measure, is of the free signups that we have, what percentage of customers have collected at least one contact? Because
Right.
if they've collected at least one contact, they got the script on, right?
Got it.
Um,
Yeah.
and that number is shockingly high. All of our metrics with RB2B are like, I speak to people and they're like, I've never heard of anything like that, right? Like it's like a 9% free to paid touch free conversion rate. Like I don't,
Wow.
yeah. People are like 1 to 3 is like what you should expect, and we're getting 9, right? So I'm not totally surprised by that, because even when the free to paid was totally broken,
Right.
8 weeks into launch or whatever, we still were getting 85% of free signups to lay the script down, which is I mean, it's like incredible. Like people say that 35 is normal. Um, so I mean, we just sort of made up a self-serve onboarding flow that a UX person would look at and say that's not good. But my response is, if you changed it, it would be a lower percentage of activation than this. you know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's definitely so it's like hard. It's hard to change stuff because it's like it's working so well, and that is definitely not our problem right now. Like there are like
Yeah.
many other issues than this. As much as it bothers you, Mr. UX person, like this is not the problem. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of this situation feels like magic in a bottle. It feels like we're trying a bunch of stuff. Well, look, that worked, but like for instance, the free to paid scheme that I had before, it didn't work at all. We had 3,000 signups and only 13 paying customers, and then we totally changed the pricing model, and now it's a 9% touch free conversion rate, right? So like, uh, it feels like a lot is really working. Not everything is working, but like when things are clicking with this new situation, it's like really working. And the most important thing is to get people activated. So like I'm pretty happy about that. you know?
That's working. So,
Yeah.
right. Um, Cool. So outside like founding startups and being a CEO and a content creator, you've also invested in various startups and funds. So what do you look for in like potential, and how do you support the growth of these startups, funds? What is it like?
Yeah, so like I did some angel stuff in 2012, 13 or whatever. Um, I made one or two investments in like maybe 2020 or 21, but like I really don't like investing. You know, I love building startups. If you become known as someone who will put seed capital into things, at least in my experience, you start getting connected to people's friends who have shitty businesses that like need funding. And your life becomes listening to people pitch you a shitty
And
idea,
becomes more
basically.
busier than what you want to be.
Yeah, it's like so I just decided to like not really do any of it. And I certainly don't have I'm an advisor of a few people, but like they're very specific cases where it's like they're in the Shopify ecosystem, they're trying to figure out the go to market motion that we figured out in retention.com, and I'm uniquely qualified to just sit there for an hour and tell them information that will save them a massive amount of time and money because of the lessons that I learned the prior 2 or 3 years. So those are the advisory relationships I have. I really don't do any investing or helping companies that I have invested because I don't like it. Like I'm too busy. I have kids. I have these companies. Like it's not how I want to spend my life. I don't even think I'll want to, when I sell these businesses, like actually want to be an investor. It's not what I like, you know?
Right. Got it. Got it.
What I'll tell you what I would
Yeah.
look for though. I would look
Yes.
for someone who's not a first time founder and
Right.
signs of like very strong signs of organic traction that is leading to revenue growth. I don't want to hear about these bullshit metrics about like, oh, we like are growing, we generated whatever in awareness, it's like I want to see you showing me that like you are, you know, things are growing organically and that is leading to an economic outcome for some group of
Right.
people, you know?
That is actual cash flow positive business of sorts, right? Or there is a potential to
Yeah.
become cash flow
Yeah. Or
positive.
there's there, yeah. Or you can just see, you know, I want to see the path to actual value for a given segment of these people's customers, right?
I
And I want
agree.
to
I
know that they've
mean,
already learned, they've made one startup work, because if you've made one startup work, you've learned all the hard lessons already, right? Like,
right. You at least know what not to do. And there are
oh yeah.
so many ideas today, like getting venture funding, getting institutional capital. But I mean, like you rightly said, I don't even see the path for them to become cash flow positive. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I mean
So
it's just,
yeah,
yeah, it's like I mean, in most cases almost every business fails, right? It's like to be sitting there listening to these people.
exactly. Yeah,
It's just a weird way to go through life, in my opinion. But I'm a builder, I'm like, this is
right.
what I like doing, you know. Um,
So awesome. Like I have one final question before like a quick rapid fire round. The final one is obviously AI is the buzzword, right? For a while, you've been in the system since the finance market collapse to all the way till now. And what are you looking up to? Like, is there anything that you're interested to like work with AI? Are you like dabbling with it? Or like, how do you think the marketing landscape is going to change because of AI? Because people are already using it, but I just want to know what's your take on
yeah.
that.
So I tend to have this viewpoint that, it's like AI came along and people were like, I need to do programmatic SEO. This is going to write my LinkedIn posts. Like all the stuff that I wasn't doing before, like all of a sudden it will be meaningful content and it will help me do what other people were doing manually, right? And doing well. Absolutely not. So like, I think I'll be writing my LinkedIn posts 5 years from now. Sounds crazy, but like, I think that the best art comes from the perspective of the
Of a
artist.
human. Yeah.
Yeah. And like AI doesn't have that, right? Like Will it help me edit? Perhaps. Will it help me generate ideas? Like maybe I can get like enough out there that I could fill into a chat GPT that it might do that. But and like, by the way, I understand. I think right now it's good enough. Like this guy Chase Diamond, who I know really well, he uses it to make 98% formed tweets that work, right? But like a tweet is very different than a LinkedIn post, which is like my preferred medium, right? So I think that like, and I'm trying to be the best. Make no mistake. Like I'm trying to create the best organic social media content possible because I have the belief that the best organic social media content has a winner take all dynamic to it. I think I'm getting more out of being the best than by like a factor of 10 than someone who's like the third best. So that's my goal. And I just don't think that AI replaces that. And it may serve as a tool for that. Where we are using it is we use Intercom's Fin for customer success, right? So like Rob is an engineer and he runs our customer support department. And he is very engineering in his mindset. So like he has all of these workflows that deal with inquiry first. And then it hits AI. And if AI can't resolve it, then it hits a person. So that's really where we're using it. And that's where I think the greatest promise is. It's like customer support questions are generally very repetitive and somewhat easy to answer, but just require, I mean, those reps are hard because it requires a certain mannerism and a certain commitment to problem solving, but it also requires you to acquire a massive breadth of knowledge about the software before you can be effective at it, right? So like hearing all of those three things, it's like, well, that's what AI does. It has a breadth of knowledge that can answer fairly easy questions with whatever temperament you tell it to, right? So you know, that's for sales. I don't know, man. Like the way that LLM, so like I think that like one-to-one sales is very different than the statistical model AI that like a Facebook would do, right? Because they're just looking at people like my wife and like giving her all of the same shit that the other women are buying, right? And I understand why it works. I think in a one-to-one sale, could be wrong about this. Like, I think that like there's calculation involved that a large language model, as it's been explained to me, doesn't do terribly well. So like a large language model just statistically feeds back the next word, right? That's not what makes a good salesman, right? It would be like if a salesman set out and like they were only allowed to say their next thought and they weren't allowed to take 1 second to think about it, right? So anyway, that's the AI thing.